Breaking down the top 5 picks. The top 5 picks in the NFL draft. The Arizona Cardinals at 1. San Francisco 49ers, New York Jets, Oakland Raiders, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Broadly speaking, interesting draft because none of those teams technically need quarterbacks. That's a whole separate discussion.
Exactly. That's
right. Would the Cardinals ever move on from Josh Rosen? Would the Raiders ever move on from Derek Carr? Bucks from Jameis Winston? But assuming they have quarterbacks, what are you looking at here? Is Nick Bosa the slam dunk number 1 overall pick here?
I believe so. I don't think I would go anywhere else if I'm the Arizona Cardinals. The only other option that I would say if they drafted him, I wouldn't think you're crazy, is Quinnen Williams, just because, yes, you have Chandler Jones on one side, and you really have no one on the interior there. Robert Nkemdiche has not come along for the Arizona Cardinals enough to stop me from drafting an interior pass rusher like Quinnen. He's versatile, can do a lot of things there. So one of those two, I can't say you're wrong for drafting either of those two. I can say you're wrong for pretty much drafting anyone else, though.
So you think it's Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams. Those are the quote unquote blue chip top 2 guys that we've seen. We've evaluated just eyeball test, but also of course the PFF evaluation system. Nick Bosa, elite grades 2 years in a row, was on his way to a third one before only playing 130 snaps or whatever it was last year. And then Quinnen Williams, the highest graded season we've ever seen from an interior defensive lineman. But essentially the consensus top 3 guys in almost every mock that I see is Bosa, Quinnen, and then Josh Allen.
Yes.
Have seen Josh Allen go 3, 4, whatever it is. Is he in that mix with those guys, or is he a step below?
I think he's a step below just because there's a lot of question marks with Josh Allen. He did not win with pretty much anything other than his athleticism at this point. His hands still aren't very much developed. He's just still pretty raw as a prospect, even though he's older than the other two. So that's already, he's behind the developmental curve. You never know if he's ever going to put it all together. But athletically, I think he's the biggest freak of those 3. He's going to test out incredibly at the combine. He does have a lot of things going for him. And if, in 5 years you said Josh Allen's a better player than either of those two, it wouldn't surprise me, in the NFL. That wouldn't be a huge surprise to me. But at the same time, you still want to maximize production on a rookie contract. I think those two are, Nick Bosa and Quinnen Williams, are as sure things as you're going to find in this draft. And to go other ways is just, rolling some unnecessary risk into the pick.
By the way, with Josh Allen, if you guys are on the YouTube channel, go find our Josh Allen profile on the YouTube channel. If you guys are listening to the podcast, I do suggest.
Do also.
What's that?
Still go find it.
Yeah. I'm telling you, go to YouTube, search PFF Josh Allen, and we did an in-depth, first time we've ever done this, 17 or so minute profile on him. Jack Collinsworth, that's Chris Collinsworth's son, did the interview. He did a great job. Our video team did a fantastic job putting this together. Just some great insight on Josh Allen, his progression in college, which he truly got better every single year, which mirrored how he got better in high school every single year. He actually quit football a couple times and came back. It's really a great story.
Red flag?
I'm not going to bring it up as a red flag. Scouts are going to bring it up as a red flag. And
but at least he has a red flag, so that's not a red flag.
Yeah, we don't want to have no red flags, because that's the biggest red flag. If you're a scout, no red flags, biggest red flag. So Josh Allen profile, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. When I was watching him the other day, my epiphany watching him is that he is what scouts and evaluators wanted Deion Jordan to be a few years ago. If you remember Deion Jordan, he went number 3 overall to the Miami Dolphins, and he's 6'7", and he's got these. He was a good athlete, if I remember. I mean, he looked burst and all that stuff. A lot of the Deion Jordan stuff was, though, it's like it just looked better because he was 6'7". It was like for a 6'7" guy,
it's like, whoa.
Watch him run the seam with this tight end. So Oregon used to drop him into coverage all the time, and he'd do some cool coverage things for 6'7", but maybe not with respect to the rest of the NFL. He wasn't like an elite coverage player for the NFL, right? But I'm watching Josh Allen, and not only was he the highest graded pass rusher on the edge last year, but he had some plays in coverage. He had over 100 plays in coverage that were just unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean, running the seam with tight ends, legitimately. There was a play the other day I'm watching, I think it was against either Mississippi State, where they drop him into curl flat, and the running back wheel. Everybody says the running back wheel's undefeated. Josh Allen step for step with the running back. It's smooth too. He's a smooth space athlete. So my thing is, can he be a pass rush coverage combo player at the next level? And do any of these teams want to use him in that capacity?
I think yes. So when you texted that to me, I said that's a fantastic take. I believe he can do that at a high level. There aren't a ton of teams that necessarily utilize a role like that.
Right.
Pittsburgh obviously has been one. The Packers utilized that role last year in their 4-3 of a guy who's sort of a true 3-4 outside linebacker where you don't know if he's rushing the passer every single snap. Whereas most 3-4 outside linebackers, guys like Von Miller, you're pretty sure they're rushing the passer. They only drop a couple of times a game into coverage. So if you do have a role like that in your defense, I think you're going to covet his skill set. That's why I said there is a role where I can see you being higher on Josh Allen on your edge than Nick Bosa, because if you play a scheme like that, but so few teams do.
Yeah, so especially the teams picking here, the Cardinals could incorporate that, but you're talking about the 49ers, just a true 4-3. I mean, he would just be a hand in the dirt pass rusher for them. For the Jets, probably the same thing with Greg Williams coming in. For the Raiders, same thing in their scheme. And for the Bucks, they're going to more of a 3-4, different type of look down there. So maybe, he would be the guy there. I would be
surprised if he gets there, though.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he gets there as well. And I've always been of the mind, I don't necessarily want to pick a guy top 3 just because he does everything kind of well. I don't want to. My issue with Deion Jordan back then is he was a pretty good pass rusher. So don't overrate the versatility. I think Josh Allen could be a very good pass rusher and a very good coverage player. So the versatility works for him.
That's the thing. It's being able to cover in and of itself is not valuable. Being able to cover at a high level is valuable.
Yes,
being able to crush the passer at a high level is valuable. Just because you are capable of something doesn't mean that has necessarily value. You have to still do things well. And I think Josh Allen does both of those things well.
Yeah, we'll talk more about all these prospects. We'll have some more breakdowns on ProFootballFocus.com. On all of these players and our thoughts and the grades and all that fun stuff. By the way, the draft guide expected to drop first week of March, right before free agency, or right in that free agent period. So keep an eye on that if you guys have PFF Edge or Elite. So Bosa, Allen, Quinnen, all those guys seem to be not locked into the top 3, but you see them most commonly. Now the rest of the top 5, it's the Raiders and the Bucks. I see things all over the place here. Again, you're not getting Dwayne Haskins or Kyler Murray, the potential top 2 quarterbacks. You're not getting them mocked that high, or Drew Lock or Daniel Jones. I mean, they're whatever quarterbacks you like. So what rounds out the top 5 here, assuming there are no trade-ups right now?
I would say this is the interesting thing, is because I do think those 3 that you mentioned, Bosa, Allen, Williams, are in sort of a class all by themselves in terms of they are the best 3 players in this draft, regardless of position. They're going to be the most coveted. And if you're the Cardinals, 49ers, Jets, if you do trade down, so if let's just say one of those teams wants to trade up for a quarterback, wants to make sure they get their guy, whether it's Haskins, Murray, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock. So whoever you want to trade up for it, if someone does trade up there and do that, will one of those teams be willing? Because at that point, if you're trading back, if you're the Jets, you're saying, I'm not getting Josh Allen. Maybe I get more draft picks, but I'm not getting this home run sort of at the top of the draft. Do you foresee that being the case, to where I've always thought someone will trade up into that top 5? But do you think those 3 teams stand pat and just say, we're going to hold on for those 3?
I love those 3 players, but I still think I would take the picks.
You'd take the picks.
I still think I would take the picks.
I do think it's a deep draft, though. So
So, I mean, I think if you pick up another second rounder, you're probably going to pick up a second rounder or a third rounder or both.
Depending on who
has
to go up, yeah.
You're going to pick up so much draft capital, and we do know that the more draft capital you pick up, the better off you are. But the interesting one's the Raiders, like you said, because if we do treat it as 3 blue chip players, are the Raiders the hot spot? They already have 3 first-round picks.
Yes.
Do they trade back and pick up even more picks? This is how you rebuild a team. This is why the Browns are where they are, because they accumulated pick after pick after pick, and
they didn't even hit on that many, And
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Most evaluators, people have studied this stuff. Most evaluators don't pick at a higher rate than others. There's not like one guy that hits 75% and there's another guy at 30%. Over time, everybody's at the 40 to 50% range.
It's. I mean, there's obviously a difference, but it's not like
but it's
one
not
guy just
80
knows,
to 20, right? So over time, if you just pick more, it's okay if you miss because you have more picks. It's just finding players. So the Raiders, I think, at 4 and the Bucks at 5 are the interesting one. So the Giants and the Jaguars. So if we're going to talk trade up, I could see the Jaguars to jump the Giants, right, to get their guy.
Yes.
That's the key player in this whole thing. Do the Giants want to move up and get their guy, or do the Jags feel like they need to leapfrog the Giants and get that guy? Or do the Giants just say, we got Eli Manning, we have our guy?
From everything we've heard, it seems like they're going to keep at least Eli Manning for next year, which to me doesn't make a ton of sense just for a number of different reasons. That's a conversation for a different day. But I do think the Jaguars are the team that they're set right now. They need a quarterback right now. Going to the draft, I'm not sure is your best bet, because you go a rookie quarterback, what's the chances that guy's going to hit immediately. I think they're the team most likely to get in the mix for Teddy Bridgewater. For a guy in the free agency this offseason, and kind of skew the draft at this point because they have so many free agents on that roster who sort of, time is ticking to some degree that they just have to, their window is right now.
So the Giants and the Jags, from a QB movement standpoint, are the key players to watch. And then the Broncos, sitting there at 10. Do they go make a power move to go get their guy? If we have to pick players, let's discuss who we would take at 4 and 5, and then discuss the guys that we wouldn't take in the top 5 that we're seeing there. If we had to take players, I know I would probably start looking at the cornerbacks. And I don't think that there's necessarily a clear-cut number one corner. There's a Jalen Ramsey that I'm just like, all right, there's the guy. Or Marshawn Lattimore, that would, there's the guy.
Yeah.
But I think there's some very intriguing corners, and we know about cornerback value. We'll be talking about this all draft season. It's time to start talking about more corners in the top 10 than maybe the NFL has done in the past.
Yes, I do think there are a handful of corners. I mean, DeAndre Baker, Greedy Williams, Byron Murphy, who are step in right away, can start for your team type of talents, and that has a ton of value. And especially when your team, like either of those, the Raiders or the Buccaneers, who both, obviously, if you watch them play any single game last season, they need help in their secondary.
What about those top 3 teams, though, too, at corner? Because they all need corners, too. Cardinals opposite Patrick Peterson. The 49ers need better depth. The Jets have needed, to solidify the cornerback position for a while. As much as, here's the thing, it's easier to project pass rushers at the next level. Like, I feel really good about Nick Bosa. I feel really good about Quentin Williams and Josh Allen. I feel good about those guys their projections and their production carrying over. I feel less good about the corners.
Yes.
But if the corner hits, they're more valuable than those top pass rushers, is what we've learned.
Yes.
This is what we're learning.
But I do think, again, it goes back to the unnecessary risk that I was talking about earlier. You pretty much know Bosa and Williams. Now, Allen, to some degree, I still feel like is still safe in terms of just what he can do athletically. Not a lot of guys that freakishly athletic just fizzle out in the NFL. He is just a freak of nature and has already produced at an extremely high level. So I do think those 3 are about as safe as it gets in this entire draft. I would also, who I'm more looking at for the Raiders and Bucks, and now the Raiders won't take him because of what happened last year, but the Bucks could definitely take him, or should take him, Jonah Williams, the tackle, Alabama.
I forgot about Jonah for a while. Yep.
He is the best offensive tackle in this class, quite clearly. I don't care what his arm length is at the combine. He is good enough to hold up at tackle in the NFL.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
We'll talk about that later, but the Buccaneers obviously need a tackle.
I like that fit.
From what they've 4 years of Donovan Smith, it's time to move on. He averaged something over like 50 pressures a season in 4 years, which is just god awful. So you have to get some pass protection there. That was their downfall offensively a season ago. A big reason why they had so many turnover-worthy plays is because they were just throwing a lot of plays under pressure. I do believe that would be a great fit, especially when you have Bruce Arians there. That system craves an offensive line. Someone there. So
I like Jonah Williams there. I like the cornerbacks, the cornerback discussion. I like Jonah Williams to the Bucs. What about guys that we're seeing in the top 5 now that that we wouldn't take?
This is the one that worries me, and brought this up earlier. Is Rashawn Gary to the Raiders?
I'm seeing this
seems like
everywhere.
That seems just like it's. I think it's going to happen. Like once you said it, it got in my mind. I'm like, that's just too perfect for what everything John Gruden drafted a season ago. Just fell in love with these physical traits from guys who had no on-field production whatsoever over their first handful of picks a season ago. Colton Miller, all their picks, and that is Rashawn Gary to a T. A freak of nature athletically, but man, he could not even dominate college offensive linemen, that's where you should be dominating if you're that freakishly athletic.
That would be the concern. So we are going to have a whole segment about guys whose production is not matching the hype. Rashawn Gary, spoiler alert, will be a part of that discussion, but he's here as well. I'm seeing him at 4 to the Raiders in many different places. This is the difference between him and Nick Bosa and Josh Allen. Gary is just a traits projection, and drafting that in the first round anywhere, let alone the top 5, is just a massive risk. And I keep going back to, we've got 4 years of data watching guys go to the NFL, now 5 years of data of college players, and our pass rush stuff has been really, really good. And it's not always like it's not perfect, right? This guy is great, therefore he's great, good. It's not always perfect college to the NFL, but the guys that dominated at college, the guys who are dominating in the NFL or being really good in the NFL, dominated in college. That's the clear thing. And it's almost like you can eliminate guys if they did not truly dominate and have an elite grade. Gary has had good, not great grades, and last year was a subpar grade in his draft season. So he's never matched the number one overall recruit hype, and now he's getting this first-round hype strictly based off of traits. He made Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. I think he was number 2 on the preseason Freaks list. Like, all that stuff's legit, but, man, it's just a lot of projection for him right now.
Yeah, pass rushing at the NFL level is far more of an art than it is how athletic you are. That athleticism only can get you in the door. It can't absolutely. We've seen so many athletic pass rushers just fizzle out at the NFL level because offensive linemen have tape study. They have, they realize they're almost as athletic as you there at that level. You have to be able to win to the outside, inside, and through offensive linemen at the next level. You really have to have a vast array of pass rushing moves, or else that one pass rush move that you have just gets shut down. Rashawn Gary just had the bull rush at Michigan. That was pretty much all he has at this point. Now, that's a good thing. A bull rush is a good thing to have. Don't get me wrong. He's a freak of nature athletically. It's probably going to get him some play at the next level as well. But it's hard to develop multiple moves. We don't, going from 0 moves in college, 0 pass rushing moves to then a full, that's like what they asked Jadeveon Clowney to do. And we've still seen him take forever to, develop that. And he was even more productive, far more productive than Gary at South Carolina.
And Clowney's another power player, power first player, even though he's got the burst and all that stuff. Just to be clear, because you keep talking about Josh Allen's athleticism, him versus Gary. We've seen Allen put up an elite grade in the SEC.
Gary's athletic for 290-pound man, and that's good, but that's Josh Allen's athletic for a 6'5", 260-pound man who can also runs like he could have played tight end. He runs like an elite tight end in the NFL. He is a guy going to run the 4.5s, elite change of direction. Gary is just a freak for that, but that's not the change of direction, those sort of things. He's more just very explosive for his size.
Other names that I've seen mocked in the top 5, Josh Jacobs, the Alabama running back.
I mean, we can just
and it's
running back.
It's not an anti-Josh Jacobs take. Yeah. It's an anti-running back take. If you're, say, the Bucs at number 5 taking a running back, it's just roster building malpractice.
Yeah.
Really,
it's
really
like taking a kicker in the second round.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Even if you do get it, if you followed our channel and our podcast enough, we love Saquon Barkley as a player, but wouldn't take him in the top 5. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs, not Saquon Barkley. I don't care what he is. The value of that running back at that position compared to, say, his teammate Jonah Williams, like you said, at left tackle, far more valuable to get that good left tackle.
I would rather have, I've seen Devin White, the LSU linebacker, I'd rather have a linebacker in the top 5 than a running back, 10 times out of 10. I think you can impact the game far more in this day and age as a linebacker than you can as a running back.
Yeah, it's all about the pass game and coverage. The other name that I've seen, not a ton, but N'Keal Harry, wide receiver from Arizona State. He's got some freakish plays. He's a big wide receiver. But again, in this deep wide receiver class, I don't even know if he's the top guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he could separate.
That's the thing. It's such a deep wide receiver class. I think there's probably going to be 15 or so guys going the first 2 rounds.
Position scarcity is a thing.
And that is the thing, yes.
Right? So you kind of have to wait. And that's basically the whole argument against drafting a running back high is position scarcity. Every single year, there are multiple running backs that you can get in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round who are productive as first rounders. Whereas it's hard to get offensive tackles, and that's part of the balance of this whole draft theory thing. Do you have to reach?
Rushers is like pretty much all our top
edge rushers are all in the top, and they're safest. If you're looking at the right stuff, again, we'll do this in our burning question. If you're looking at the right stuff, they're the safest, right? So that's our top 5 breakdown. There's a whole different ways to slice this, but I think it's this defensive heavy draft at the top. We're talking all defensive players unless teams trade up to go get the quarterbacks or maybe get an offensive tackle like Jonah Williams. Right?
That's about the only guy I could foresee offensively non-quarterback going top 10.